Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Film and Whiskey Podcast. I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And today we're coming at you with another special bonus episode. We're resurrecting a bonus episode format that we have not done in a while, Brad.
Yeah.
It's our Top 5 series.
But a little bit different take on the Top 5 series, Bob. We're putting a twist on it.
Yeah, you know, it's the time of year where everyone's getting into their fantasy football drafts, and pretty soon it's going to be the Film and Whiskey fantasy basketball draft again. And so we kind of figured, let's find a way to work a draft theme into our Top 5. And I really like the format that you came up with, Brad. Why don't you explain it to the listeners?
Yeah, so I was honestly thinking about just doing a bonus episode talking about, like, if we could make a movie, what kind of movie would we make? And that kind of took me down the thought train of, like, well, I think I'd want to make, like, a dark action thriller type of movie. And I started to wonder, like, well, who would I want to make that movie? Because, you know, obviously I would be directing it, and I would have, it'd be my breakout film, and I'd win an Oscar. But if I wasn't able to direct it, who would I have direct it, and who would write it, and who would, you know, work on the cinematography and the music, and who'd be the lead actor? And I was like, oh my gosh, we have a bonus episode.
Well, and the way that it worked out is?
Oh, and the way that it worked out is we're going to give you a top 5, as in the top 5 roles. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll try to break it down.
Yeah, break it down for me, Bob, because I'm having a hard time here.
Yeah, so what we're going to do today is we're basically going to have a draft of 5 categories. And it's essentially like, what would your top 5, I don't know, dream team to work on a movie of your choosing be? We're assuming that Brad and I are high-powered Hollywood producers, that we have our pick of the litter of the best of directing and writing and cinematography and acting and scoring the movie. And we can pick one person to fit each role, and the other person cannot pick that person anymore. And so it's kind of a draft. We're going to be allowed to go in any order. So you can take your director first. I could take a cinematographer first. You know, we can strategically try to anticipate where the other person's going and pick somebody to kind of block them from forming a better movie than my studio is forming.
What's your studio called, Bob?
I was trying to think of a clever name over here. I got nothing, man.
I think it's kind of along the lines of like A24. I'm going to go for G10.
Oh, nice. I'm going to go with Viscosity Pictures.
Ooh, let's go, man.
Love it. This is what we're going to do today. I'm really excited for it. We've never done anything in a draft format before. I'm not historically known for being a great fantasy football drafter, so this might end up going really badly for me. We will see.
You make up for it in fantasy basketball, though.
I sure do, man. I researched the hell out of that document. So
you do.
A couple more ground rules. We can only pick people who are alive and currently working. So no one that has announced, a retirement from making movies. And because of that, it has to be a movie that could plausibly get made. So I'm pretty pumped. While we're doing it, we're going to sip on 2 whiskeys. The first of which is from Catoctin Creek Distillers in Virginia. It's their Ragnarok Rye, which is just one of the coolest looking bottles I think I've ever seen, Brad.
Yeah, hands down, it is just a wildly awesome bottle. It came in the mail and I opened it and I literally just dropped an expletive oh my gosh, this is one of the coolest bottles I've ever seen.
And then the second one, we're going to be revisiting Still Austin, which is one of our favorite brands that's come out in the last couple years, obviously out of Texas. The first time we had them was way back when we first had our friend Scott Sauer on the show to break down, I think, the mint julep. That might have been the episode that we did this with. And it was a whiskey that I think was 94-ish proof, may have been up to 100, but it was still at cocktail proof. And it was one of those where we're like, hey, if you really want to elevate whatever cocktail you're making, use this whiskey, but also you're not going to want to use the whiskey because it drinks so beautifully neat. They've sent us their cask strength expression, and I am really excited to try this one.
You're not going to want to keep the whiskey in there, Bob, because it drinks good neat?
Is that what I said?
Yep. I think you want to drop the mixer, actually.
No, what I was saying was, we don't want to use it for cocktails because it
gotcha.
drinks so good on its own. Why?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. I heard that wrong.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, Bob, do you want to draft this like a snake draft where the first person picks first and then the next person gets the next two picks? Do you just want to go back and forth? How do you want to roll this?
Well, let's go back and forth. And I'll let you go first. That's how much I care about you. And how much confidence I have in my own abilities.
I was thinking that we could flip the coin of destiny, but if you want to let me go first, that's up to you, man.
No, man, it was your idea. I am a man of honor. And I respect the fact that you put this whole thing together. So you go first. All right. So once again, our 5 categories are director, actor or actress, cinematographer, composer, and writer. So Brad, where do you want to start?
I am going to, with the first pick in the Film and Whiskey draft of 2022, I am going to pick Roger Deakins, cinematographer.
Oh, you bastard. All right.
I knew out of my whole list, I was like, this is the person that Bob will take first.
Oh, man. All right. Deakins is off the board. That was the ace in the hole, man. He makes everything better.
I was going to say, I think primarily for like Sicario's influence, but also like, I don't know, everything he makes. 1917, Fargo, Skyfall, like the dude is just a true living legend in the world of cinematography.
Absolutely.
I guess I kind of mentioned it. In my mind, I'm building like a dark action thriller. What kind of movie do you feel like you're building for, Bob?
I honestly have no idea. I think that I would get too crushed when, like, if I went into it thinking, oh, I'm going to do, like a family drama, like Marriage Story.
Rom-com.
Yeah, whatever. And then those people started getting picked off by you, I would get more pissed off. So I think I'm just going to go with... Go ahead.
I would like Nora Ephron to write my dark action thriller.
So I think I'm going to just go with like best available person. And at the end be like, you know what? They're all so talented. They can think of something to make a movie about.
All right. Well, your first pick is up, Bob. Where are you going?
I'm going to start with the writer. And I'm going to take someone who was like 8th or 9th down my list. But I think, again, I'm just going for like most talented person. And I'm taking a writer who's also a director, but I would rather have them writing than I would directing for this exercise. And that is Paul Thomas Anderson.
Ooh, he was on my list too, man.
I'm going to take him because if you look at the screenplays for his movies, I mean, from Boogie Nights to There Will Be Blood to Licorice Pizza last year, he can work in almost any genre. And I think he's so good at finding little moments for each character to express their inner desires in ways that don't come across as forced, that don't come across as hammy. I'm really excited to see what Paul Thomas Anderson's going to concoct here, but that's my first pick.
Yeah, I think that's a really great first pick, Bob. I know that you've been raving over Licorice Pizza for a while now, so
love that movie.
That's a good one, man. With the second pick, I think. Well, my pick for writer is safe now, so I can hold back on that. I think I'm going to go with director, and I'm really struggling between the two. I think I'm going to go with David Fincher.
Nice.
I still haven't seen Zodiac, but from what I know about it, that fits with what I think I'm going for. The dude who made Fight Club and Seven and The Social Network, I just feel like you pair him up with Deakins and they're just going to make some phenomenal work. So I think that Fincher's my guy. I really like the way he draws out, really like deep inner narratives that are going on in his characters' lives and yet still pushes the movie forward in a very kinetic way. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be a really, really good pairing with Deakins. Have they worked together on a movie before?
Deakins and Fincher? I don't believe they have. Deakins has stuck to... I mean, he's worked all over the place with a ton of different directors, but I don't believe he's worked with Fincher.
Well, now he will.
We need to remedy that. Yeah. All right. Time for my second pick, and then we'll go ahead and break for our first whiskey. I'm going to stick with kind of like the below the line people here. I'm going to go with composer. And I'm going to go with Nicholas Britell, who did the score for If Beale Street Could Talk, a score that we have talked about a lot on this podcast, actually, since we watched that movie. It's been used a lot lately in like Instagram Reels and TikTok. And it's really funny because when you know like what movie it's from, it's like, wow, that really doesn't go with your stupid TikTok of you baking a loaf of bread. But it's such a beautiful, heart-wrenching score. And I just love the way Britell uses the piano, uses the strings. I really think we could get something really, really cool out of the combination of a PTA script and a Nicholas Britell score.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I love it, man. Let's get into this Ragnarok. I'm really excited for this whiskey.
Yeah, so again, this is from Catoctin Creek. Now, we had one of their ryes on the show a little over a year ago now, Brad, and we were not big fans of it. And the reason behind that is that it has the craft whiskey notes all over it on the nose. And I know that like a lot of people describe the craft whiskey funk as being kind of like a wet cardboard. Like there's just this note that hangs around in young craft whiskey, and it's hard to explain, but it's always on Catoctin Creek products. And specifically the one we had last year, we did not really like at all. And so we got this one in the mail, and it's a collaboration with the metal band Gwar, and it is covered in, images of them looking like what, I don't know, what'd you call it? Like the Banshees of Hell? Yes.
Nordic demonic forces.
There it is. It has this awesome metallic stopper on the top of it. Of course, they wrote some really cool copy. You can read all about it on their website. For our purposes, what we want to know is this. It is a 94 proof rye, aged in new white oak, and then in sugar maple and cherry wood. And I said 94 proof. It's 92 proof. It is non-age stated. So I have no idea how old it actually is, but I'm assuming older than 3 years old. Brad, let's give it a nose and a taste. I know you've tried it already. I'm actually diving in live on air. So why don't you give us your notes?
Yeah, I think that this one has that same funk, Bob. Mm-hmm. It's got it like the minute I put it up to my nose, I was like, oh yeah, that's Catoctin Creek.
Yep.
It's kind of like a strong... There's almost a bit of a strong cherry, dark fruit kind of note going on for me.
Yeah.
And a little bit of vanilla underneath. I don't know, man. The nose feels a little bit smoother than last time, but there's still some of that same stuff going on.
Yeah, it's really hard to describe it, but it smells familiar, and I don't know how to explain that. I know that on really bad whiskeys we've had before, I've talked about this cleaning product called Tarnex, and it kind of has a little bit of that on it. It has a little bit of like cardboard to it, but then it also smells a lot like butterscotch, and it's like if you could combine just like smeared butterscotch topping on wet cardboard. And that doesn't sound appealing, and I'm not sure it is appealing, but it's the closest I can get to being accurate here. It does smell like a freshly cut red apple a little bit to me underneath all that, and you're right, there's some vanilla here as well. It all mingles together to make a really unique nose. I just don't know where this is going from here.
Yeah, it's a really interesting nose. That's about the best way to put it. Let's give it a sip, though, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, it definitely still tastes a little bit young. It's not a super well-rounded whiskey. Like, it's got some pepper to it. It's got some heat and like some bite to it, really.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that it covers the tongue a lot either. Like, it's just 92
it's a little bit thin.
Yeah, 92 proof is maybe not where this should be. I think it should be up in like the 100 to 104 proof. However, this is like a significant step up from that last Catoctin Creek we had.
Yeah, the little bit of a funk comes through, but I don't know how to describe it other than to say the original Catoctin Creek just had a lot of rough edges that are not present on this one. I don't know if they've aged it a little bit longer, but it definitely comes across as a more complete experience. And there's just more flavor going on. And the funk that was there before is present, but not overpowering. And I actually kind of like it in this expression of Catoctin Creek.
Yeah, for me, I think the finish is where this really shines, because you swallow it and it's like, okay, that was a nice young rye. And then a layer kind of came back up on my palate after I let it sit for a second. And then it tasted like I had drank an older rye. Like it had a nice dusty quality to it. There was some nice fruit notes that came out on the end there. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Like the tasting experience was like, okay, young rye probably needs another 2 years to be like superb. And then afterwards, it was like, here's what this could be. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was like, look, it was like a glimpse into the future of this rye if they kept it in the barrel for like another 3 years, maybe.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think you add 10 proof points to this, jump it up just above 100, and you're looking at a whiskey that really has a lot of legs to it. That, yeah. But overall, man, this is a really, really pleasant experience. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I think if we were scoring this out of 50, again, not really factoring in the price right now, but just for the sake of argument, I'd probably put this somewhere in like a, I don't know, 32 to 35 range. But you're right. If it was a little bit heavier on the alcohol content and just a little bit longer age, I think this could be like a 40 or above. It's really on the right track.
Yeah, 100%. I think I'd be a little above you, 34 to 37 area. But yeah, this is a improvement over the first offering. And once again, we've talked a lot of times about cool packaging with subpar interior contents. This is not that. This is one of the coolest bottles I have ever seen in my life, paired with a really solid whiskey inside. So if you're able to get your hands on some Ragnarok, I think I'd suggest it, Bob.
Yeah, me too, man. And I would also suggest diving back into this draft because it's your turn to pick your third member of your dream team.
Yeah, so I've got myself a director and a cinematographer. I think, well, I'll just go into I'm just going to keep, this is draft strategy, Bob. I'm going to keep going into places you haven't been, and there's only one actor that I can choose. And I think you might be able to pick him for me, Bob, but we're talking Tom Cruise, baby. I think I am just utterly convinced that Tom Cruise is one of our greatest living treasures of an actor, and he deserves an Oscar, and I want him to get it in this movie. Because I think he has so much more depth to his acting than people give him credit for. And this is it, man. This is the time. Maybe it's a dark thriller that is about him as an aging, policeman or detective or something. I don't know. I'm here for it, and I think that Tom Cruise deserves a really serious role for him to win an Oscar.
I love it, man. All right, I think it's time for me to choose a director. And I'm down to 3 people on my list because I keep thinking of this Nicholas Britell score and the sort of aching, if Beale Street could talk themes here. Barry Jenkins is still on my list. I could snatch him up right now. I think he would make a beautiful movie with Paul Thomas Anderson writing. I've got Spielberg on here because he's Spielberg, and he's also absolutely capable of this kind of movie. I mean, he has a film coming out this fall called The Fabelmans, which is basically an autobiography of his own life. He's done this kind of stuff before. He knows how to do the traumatized kid or shattered relationship very, very well.
No, not Spielberg.
Not Spielberg. The other person that I'm going back and forth with is Alfonso Cuarón. I think that he's super ambitious, but he also really understands, Children of Men is such a beautiful movie. But could I see Cuarón directing a PTA script? I think is the thing that's like throwing me off here. I think I'm going to go Spielberg, although I want to go Jenkins, but I'm going to go Spielberg as my director because you can't go wrong, man.
Dude, Paul Thomas Anderson and Spielberg working together on a movie would just be absolutely epic.
All right, man. Number 4 for you. What are you going to do?
Number 4 for me, I think I'm going to go into the composer realm, and I am going to pick Johan Johansson.
Oh, of Arrival fame.
Arrival, Sicario. I think that he just has a real talent for, honestly, it's what you were saying about Nicholas Britell got me in this direction was, there's something about a mournful backdrop for any drama that you film that just sets the stage for where you want to go emotionally. And I think that Johansson would do a really beautiful job at that for the movie I'm envisioning.
I'm going to hold off on my actor because I have a list of 5 people right now, and I'm like, this is too many people. Can't claim them all. So I'm going to go cinematographer. And I'm realizing as I go through these lists that what I'm doing is I'm basically picking directors through their collaborators. So like I picked Bertel because he works with Jenkins, and I picked PTA because he works with PTA. And I'm going to pick Rodrigo Prieto as my cinematographer. We've talked about him a couple times on this show. He did the cinematography for Silence, which we just did a few weeks ago. He's been working more and more with Scorsese and just doing these beautiful movies. He can also go really Hollywood with his compositions. Like he did the movie Argo, which it looked really great, but it was like your standard, kind of political thriller. He also did the cinematography for Brokeback Mountain, which is one of the most beautiful looking movies I think we've ever done on this show. So yeah, I'm going to go Prieto. He's like, he kind of flies under the radar a little bit. I was thinking about, like a Lubeski who did Birdman and The Revenant, but I don't know that I want a camera 3 inches from my actors' faces throughout the whole movie. So I'm gonna
Depends on which actor you choose.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to take Prieto. I like it.
Yeah, dude. Well, do you want to jump into this still Austin, or do you want to make our final picks?
Let's play out the suspense, because I think we both still have to pick our acting performances, right?
No, I chose Tom Cruise.
Oh, that's right. You did choose Tommy C. So who's left for you?
Yeah.
What's your...
my writer.
Your writer, and I have an actor. Yeah, let's break and let's try this Still Austin. What do you say?
All right. Yeah, let's get to it, man.
All right, so we are trying Still Austin cask strength bourbon whiskey. This clocks in at 118 proof. It is aged for at least 2 years. And this was something we noticed with the original Still Austin as well. I think that one was called The Musician. It says 2 years right on the bottle, and we kept looking at the bottle going like, how is this only 2 years old? Because we saw 2 years and we were like, oh gosh, are we going to have to like find nice things to say about the 2-year-old whiskey? And it did not drink like a 2-year-old whiskey at all. This is a 70% non-GMO corn, 25% rye, and 5% malted barley mash bill.
Wait, you had to, they specified non-GMO
Oh man,
corn?
They specified everything. 25% Elbon rye, I don't even know what that means, and 5% wildfire malted barley. So,
well, why didn't you say so before, Bob?
No. Well, that's probably why the MSRP on this is $65 for a bottle. So I think I will factor that in a little bit as we get into our tasting and scoring here. Brad, I'm pouring it out right now. Why don't you tell me what you think of it?
Yeah, I honestly, the nose is a little bit lacking. Like there's some nice stuff going on, but I'm not getting enough nice stuff. There's a little bit of orange there, some caramel and vanilla come across. It's got your classic bourbon notes, but I'm not getting a lot of complexity. I think that's the issue I'm having right now. I don't know, Bob. Where are you at with the nose so far?
I'm in a really different spot than you, Brad, and I think it's because if there's a word I could use to describe this, it's just dark. Like it smells like you squirted like pancake syrup into a glass. It's really, really dark. It's really decadent. Lots of maple, lots of brown sugar, almost molasses, like just straight molasses on this.
I was going to say molasses is the right word. It doesn't quite have for me, it doesn't quite have the decadence of like a sweet maple syrup. But yeah, molasses really, that's it, man.
I think as it kind of airs out a little bit in my glass here, it's starting to open up a little bit. Those dark notes are dissipating and it becomes a lot more oaky, a little bit more dusty as well, which is not something I was expecting on a 2-year-old whiskey. Again, like when you factor in that this is only 2 years old, there's quite a bit of complexity, I think, Brad, because it doesn't smell like a young whiskey.
No, it really doesn't. There are some really nice things going on here. I think, if I'm being honest, Bob, I might have just filled my glass a little too full. I'm used to having these tiny little samples to pour out of, and this time I have a whole 750 milliliters, so might not have been enough room.
When I get into the taste here, I think the thing that stands out to me is like right on the back end of the palate, it gets kind of like herbal and vegetal, which I wasn't expecting. It has that sort of like craft rye thing we get sometimes, like on the Belfort rye. I keep making this comparison to like me pulling weeds out in the yard and like that weird chlorophyll smell you get from pulling certain weeds. It's like that on my palate, and that wasn't present at all on the nose. So I'm a little bit surprised at the fact that this doesn't have the really like brown sugar maple heavy taste that the smell would have suggested.
Yeah, it has a little bit of molasses up front for me, but I would agree. It almost turns into a baking spice, vegetal, just really fascinating mixture of experiences. Like, this isn't a very typical bourbon. There's a little bit of vanilla there for me, but it's not overpowering. When I get in the finish, it turns a little oaky on me, but not bitter. Some continuing orange notes that I got from the start. This is a really interesting whiskey, Bob.
Now, again, it's 118 proof. I don't think that it really suggests that on the palate. Like, it's definitely a higher proof whiskey, but it doesn't hit you the way you would expect 118 to hit you. And I'll give it that much. As for that note that I don't particularly like, that sort of like earthy, weedy type note, I don't know if aging this longer would kind of mellow that out a little bit, but I will say that at 2 years old, I think the most apparent thing about it is like the nose is there, the taste is not quite there yet. If this was 4 years old, I think it'd be a lot more well-rounded.
Yeah, I think that a little bit more age here would definitely make it worth the ticket price. Man, I tried this a week or so ago, and I really enjoyed it. But this time through, there's a few more gaps in it than I thought there would be.
Mm-hmm. And it might be that barley that's in here as well. But again, at only 5%, I can't imagine it being that big of a deal. Brad, I like this a lot, but I think if I'm being honest, I liked the non-barrel proof version of Still Austin just a little bit better than this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm with you, man. But I think Still Austin is making some crazy good whiskey here.
I do too, man. They're on a great trajectory, and I think that, their stuff's not going to be 2 years old forever. Mm-hmm. And when it becomes 4 years old and it becomes 6 and 8 years old, it's going to be spectacular stuff. Like, I cannot wait to see what keeps coming out of there.
Yeah, really some of the better things on the market that I can imagine. I really like what Still Austin is doing here.
All right, man, we have one more pick apiece. You're going first, and you've got to do a writer, correct?
That is correct. Bob, I think to round it out, I would like to choose the Coen brothers as my writer.
Nice.
As a team, the only stipulation, and we'd have to hammer this out in the contractual, negotiations. I would want it, because you said this very early on about the Coen brothers, and I think you're right, that it feels like every other movie that they make together is either super nihilistic and has somewhat of a pointless ending, a la No Country for Old Men. And then other ones have
wait. Say it one more time.
No Country for Old Men?
No Country. Every time you say it, it sounds like you're referring to the actor Gary Oldman.
No Country for Old Men.
You don't separate the two words, old man.
Gary has no place here.
No Country for Old Men. Get out.
So I don't want a No Country for Gary Oldman script, but I do want a Fargo type script. Something that has like a weirdly uplifting ending, something that has a little bit of purpose to it. And when they do that, I think they're some of the best scriptwriters I've ever seen. So for what I'm shooting for in this movie, I want the Coen brothers.
It sounds like what I am setting up for is a movie about someone dealing with like some crushing emotional weight, because I've got Spielberg and PTA and Britell and Prieto. And so that's kind of helped me narrow down my actor list from 5 to 4. So I'm really honing in here, Brad.
You're killing it, man.
The first person I had on my list was Denzel, because he's Denzel. And
dude,
it's hard to choose against Denzel, but I think I'm going to. And it's because I think that the movie that I'm creating here needs someone who can walk the streets alone at night and be sad and
listen to Green Day.
Yeah, no, but like make you feel the weight. And it's not that Denzel can't do that, but it's been a while since he's done a role that feels really like interior. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you saw him in Fences, which he also directed.
Dude, Fences
great movie.
Is so good.
Great movie. Really showy performance. And he just did Macbeth with Joel Cohen, or was it Ethan Cohen? I can't remember at the moment, but great movie, showy performance. It's Macbeth. So I'm going to take Denzel out of the running for now. And
so you're down to 3.
I had 2 male actors besides Denzel that I was thinking of, and one was Jake Gyllenhaal. who I have season tickets to. Like, I will go see anything he's in. He was fantastic in a movie that I keep talking about, Michael Bay's Ambulance. Completely unhinged.
Never heard of it.
He was really doing like a Nicolas Cage thing in that movie, and I love it. But because of that, I'm taking him out of the running as well. And that leaves me with two people, one of whom is Andrew Garfield, who is becoming an actor that I really, really love. He was in, I think, 3 different movies last year, very different performances in all 3. But he's really good at that sort of like sensitive, emotional hurt performance. I think he'd be great here. The other one is an actress who's really come on strong the last 5 or so years, Olivia Colman, who was nominated, who won the Oscar for The Favorite, who's been nominated in many movies since then. Just a year or 2 ago, she was in The Father with Anthony Hopkins. Man, great movie. I can't decide who to pick here, man. Coleman is like, you can do no wrong. And I think she's the obvious choice, actually. But it's also like when we put our lists up on social media and people see my list, they're going to be like, who are half of these people? Whereas like Andrew Garfield, people are like, Spider-Man. Like, I know him, you know. So
can I be honest with you, man?
Go for it.
I don't like Andrew Garfield a ton. I think
really?
he's kind of whiny. I haven't seen Tick, Tick, Boom.
Yeah, you should watch that. He has completely changed my opinion of him over the last 2 years or so.
Okay.
He played Jim Baker in The Eyes of Tammy Faye last year, and he was great in that movie too. Okay. I'm just a big fan.
Yeah, no, I'm open to having my opinion changed. I just feel like I never watched it because I was like refusing on principle, but I just heard bad things about the Amazing Spider-Man, and I didn't care for him in Silence a ton. And I don't know, he just always strikes me as the exemplar of like the whiny early 20-year-old. And I don't, maybe that's just my issues. It's probably not even his own.
Well, I think because of that, you've helped sway me back towards Olivia Colman. I'm going to choose her as my leading actress in this movie.
Hey.
So here's my rundown, man. I've got a movie starring Olivia Colman, directed by Steven Spielberg, with a script from Paul Thomas Anderson. Cinematography is being done by Rodrigo Prieto, and it is being scored by Nicholas Britell. And that movie is called Oscar Bait.
TM.
Now what's yours?
Directing my movie is David Fincher, which will be written by the Coen brothers. Roger Deakins will be doing the cinematography. Johan Johansson will be composing the music, and Tom Cruise will be keeping you at the edge of your seats.
I feel like if you had a real movie set with Tom Cruise and David Fincher on it, 2 people who are notorious perfectionists, that it would just, like, the sheer battle of wills on that set would just cause, like, an atomic explosion.
Unless they were together on the vision. If they agreed on the vision, I think that it could be one of the most beautiful collaborations in cinematic history.
And you know what? Even if they don't, and it is an atomic explosion, from the dust of that atomic explosion, you would get an awesome shot of Tom Cruise running.
Yes.
He would just emerge 100%. Out of the mushroom cloud in full sprint.
I mean, if Aaron Sorkin and David Fincher can collaborate, then I think we have a chance with Tom Cruise.
Let's hope so. All right, Film and Whiskey Nation, we'd love to hear from you. Who had the better draft? Who has the better movie? You can let us know on our social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, @FilmWhiskey.
Or if you want to talk with us about what your picks would be, who would you take as your top 5? Obviously, you can't have any of the 10 people we picked, but who would you have in your fantasy draft of people to create a movie? You can check out our Discord. There's a link to download it at the end of every single one of our show notes.
We'll be back on Monday with another regularly scheduled episode. But until then, I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we'll see you next time.